All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Yohanis. Thank you for inviting me. Um, well, what I'm going to share with you is actually a project, a teaching and learning project that I started quite some time ago, and and based on the project, me and my colleagues, which Nur Hilyati and Safia Najwa from the School of Arts, we submitted to ACRI and we won the bronze medal. So, and sharing session is about that project. What did we do and things like that. And I understand from Dr. Yohanis that it's supposed to be focusing on assessment. So this presentation is very much geared towards understanding how we did those things, especially from the perspective of assessment. All right. So basically, this project began, I would say, about 10 years ago, maybe slightly less than that. But then it started on a very small scale. Um, so I was teaching TESOL students, and my area for that particular course is listening and speaking. And one of the component that I had uh, in that course is drama, because drama is actually an activity that really can give you confidence, especially in terms of speaking publicly, speaking in public settings, and the interaction, the engagement with the audience, and so forth. Um, and and it was very difficult for me to train them to act, the stage, the props, and so forth. So in the first two or three sessions, the students had to do the training by themselves. So I was really relying on their experiences as a student who may or may not have experience in directing and acting during their school times. Then I started to engage Madam Hill, Nur Hilyati Ramli. So because her expertise is she's an expert in drama and theatre. So I roped her in to help me out to train my students, especially the basic skills of acting, directing, script writing, staging, props, lighting, and so forth. Okay, so then the project began to take off, and from one year to another year, it got bigger and bigger, and it came to a point where we included another another lecturer, Safia Najwa Swahimi, and she she specializes in um graphic and designing. So we brought her in because we the project grew by itself, and there are so many things that we included. So basically, what we did was my students, TESOL students, they are supposed to produce a show, a theater, a drama, and whereby they have to act, they have to write the script, they have to direct. So the interaction very much related to the learning outcomes that is needed of them, which is listening, speaking, interacting, communicating, and so forth. And then we also, from Nur Hilyati's course, which is acting and directing, they were also having their own course outcomes, whereby they have to direct and act in a play. But then at that time, they had no one to direct. So it's like by themselves, they have to be the actors, and their peers are directing them. It's like self-directing, self-acting, and self-giving marks. So it was like short sendiri, as we say in Bahasa Malaysia. So what happened was, now I'm giving Hill, I call her Hill the chance to actually direct actors from another group, which is the TESOL group. So that was the first step. So she had about 30 students the first time around, and we divided into a few groups, and her students uh, directed, guided my students on acting, on writing scripts, and so forth, because those are the skills which are not available, which they did not have. So the acting and directing students, they actually taught my students on those aspects. And then later, 2 semesters later, or 2 sessions later, we included Safia. Safia, Najwa, I call her Najwa. She is from graphic and designing. So her course is basically how to create posters, design brochures, promotion, publicity. So her course is about all that. So we brought together these three distinct groups, but somehow they are related to each other, and we came up with a project.
Oh,
Is everything okay?
tengok terus. Boleh kasih.
Yohanis, is everything okay? Hello?
Yes, Prof, I can hear you. It's okay.
Huh? They can't hear me?
Yeah, it's okay.
Now can they hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I just don't want to be talking to myself. That's the downside of this online thing. I can't see you guys, and obviously you guys can see me, but I'm like talking to myself to the screen. Okay, anyway, so this is that's the engagement that we had between the three groups. So we came up, and this project we did it in 2019, just before the pandemic. So we created all the activities. The students' reflection is there in this Facebook group. We call it Advancing Creativity Together. So that's our tagline. We really wanted them to be creative, the TESOL students to be creative in their own way, the acting and directing students to be creative in their own way as well, and the graphic designers as well. All right. So some background information, the theoretical underpinnings. So we did project-based learning. We integrated collaborative elements, and we also focus on authentic learning elements. So these are the three basic or fundamental theoretical underpinnings that we made sure it's there. So the project-based learning is translated into the collaborative project work between the three groups. The collaboration is between the TESOL, the acting and directing students, as well as the graphic and design students. And authentic learning, we made sure their learning is really based on their needs, meaningful for them, and it is based on the real world scenario. Meaning to say, as you will see as we go on, the authentic learning, we made sure that whatever that they're learning is useful for their real world, for their future experiences, whether they're going to be an actor or director or a TESOL teacher or a graphic designer. Basically, our input, I would say about 30%, and the students, they had to engage with others, 70%. So we try to limit our intrusion or our input as much as possible so that their creativity could flourish. That's one of our aims. We also used social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, and other online platforms and tools. And what happened was that the semester started um, in April, or yeah, I think April, the second semester. And then, as we all know, by the time when it reached end of the year, COVID broke and we couldn't have any what do you call face-to-face meeting. So we had to transfer most of our activities in the online platforms. But you will see some of the activities that they managed to do face-to-face. So to make it really authentic and real for them, we formed groups. There were a total 206 students. So each group would have 10 TESOL students. They would have 10 graphic designers and 5 acting and directing students. So on average, we had 8 groups, and each of the 8 groups on average had about 25 students. So they have to work together. They have to produce a performance, which is the theater, acted, and the scripts are written by my student with the help of the directing students. And the graphic designers, they had to publicize, they have to prepare the posters, the banners, the props, and they have to do online promotion. Um, Public has to be involved. And then we also had judges from the industry. We had actors, we had directors coming in and actually assessing what they have done. Okay, so every single aspect of the collaboration adhered closely as possible to the real world scenario. So um, a very simple and good example is where the acting and directing students, we gave them the total freedom to direct my TESOL student the way that they want it to be. So that they can express their creativity, inclination, efforts, and all these were brought out by my students, by my TESOL students, and supported, of course, supported by the graphic designers. Okay, and we had, as I said just now, we had external judges from the industry. So this is basically what they had to do. Each group had to come up with a performance. There were 8 groups in total, and one of the criteria that we had was that the marks that we gave, for example, is not only based on the acting, but also on the directing, also on the posters. So one group would, if one group gets A, meaning to say the writing script was good, the directing and producing was good, the designing of the poster, the promotion of the events in online platforms was also good. So the A of a group, an A for the group reflected the collaboration between these 3 students, these 3 groups of students from TESOL, graphic designers, and acting and directing. So an A for my students is not only A for their acting and writing of script, but because they also collaborated with the acting and directing and the designers. So basically, this is the outline. So as a community of practice, these 3 individuals, 3 distinct groups of students, they also had to do e-portfolios, and the e-portfolios are in the Facebook platform, whereby they construct knowledge, they learn a lot of reflections, sharing. They also solve problems, produce materials, online materials for the production, and they have different tasks that they have to do. And these different tasks are based on the learning outcome 1, learning outcome 2, and learning outcome 3. So for my students, the learning outcomes are different from the learning outcomes for the acting and directing students, as well as the graphic designers. So each group had 3 learning outcomes, but these 3 learning outcomes were different because we also wanted to make sure that their course outline, the learning outcomes in their courses are also attained. So in this sense, we used authentic assessment. So lecturers from the industry, public, and other stakeholders. So their performance, which unfortunately because of COVID, we had to change the way the performance would be done, because since there is no more face-to-face, so we have to um, ask them to prepare a video. So from different places, they had to somehow they managed to come up with a video that links everybody, and they performed, uh, and they had to create this video channel whereby it has to be publicized and promoted by the graphic designers in each team. Right. So this is one. So basically, you can get all this information from the Facebook group. It is still open. It is still accessible if you want to go in there. I have not set password, or I have not limited to anyone, so it is public. So this is one of the judges. Okay. This is Dr. Kamal Sabran, quite well-known musician. He's very well director, music director as well. It's quite well known. Obviously not to our world, but in this area, he's quite well known in Malaysia, as well as Miss Wong, one of the directors or producers, I think. Okay, so this is the learning and reflection in their Facebook group, because we also wanted them to capture what they have learned through in the collaboration that they had gone through with the other students from the School of the Arts. Yeah, so these are some of the reflections that they have written. I'll just go through. Just to let you know, from these 200 students, there are over about 2,400 entries in the ACT Facebook group. So the TESOL students were writing from their perspective. The graphic designers were writing from their perspective. The acting and directing students were writing reflections from their perspective. So each of them had their own groups, and they were reflecting from their own perspective. But somehow it sort of like intertangled with each other. So that made that is what, the 2,400 entries, different kinds of reflections and so forth. We also had WhatsApp group for discussions, whereby we actually disseminated information from us to students, and also students to students, and students to lecturers. Okay, so this is the channel, Advancing Creativity Together. Some examples there. There were 8 groups, so these are the video musical that they had to produce. So we gave a theme, which was famous musical shows. So they had to do a video, short video of their own interpretation of the musical drama or theater or movie. For example, Footloose, Annie. So all these things were quite famous. So let's just watch a video. I think this is behind the scenes, and you will see how. I hope the audio is there. And I believe I also need to do something about the audio. Video system.
Prof, if may I assist you on the sharing button, there's a drop down button. You have to choose optimize for motion and video.
Okay. All right, guys, welcome back to my channel.
Okay, hold on, guys. Before I play the video, can you all hear the audio? Is it audible?
Now I think we can
Yohanis,
hear,
is this
but then
audible?
no, there's no
The
sound.
line is not so clear.
Yep.
There's no sound. Can somebody help me? I know there's a button that I need to click or something at WebEx that will allow the videos to be played with audio.
Okay, Prof, while sharing,
But
jumpa tak? There's a drop down button. There are three options, which is first is automatically optimized for text and images, and last one is optimized for motion and video. So you have to choose the last one, the optimized for motion and video.
that clear lah. Okay lah, maybe I skip the video, but I don't know how to do it. I've done it before, but I just completely forgot about it, how to do it. Okay, never mind. We'll skip the video, but the video will actually, I mean, if you have time, you can visit the, what do you call, the channels, and you can actually see how the three different groups of students, they work together and they really had fun in the long run. At beginning, they were a bit reluctant as usual, you know, but towards the end, they started to see the benefits of it and they really enjoyed themselves. Okay, this is another group. So so what are the guidelines? What are the things that we made sure is in place so that this is something that could go on without problems? One is you must have a learning outcome for the project. So a learning outcome for my students, for the acting and directing students, as well as for the graphic designers. So there must be a learning outcome for the project, as well as learning outcome that is that needs to be attained for their respective courses. So that has to be stated. So learning outcomes for each group, and the authentic tasks. We need to make sure that students are creative and they create and construct knowledge. They create and construct knowledge. So in this project, how did they do that? So for example, the drama. So we totally left it to their own devices, meaning to say they had to direct, they have to write the script, they have to act, but in collaboration with each other, the three different groups. And then the other thing is finding commonalities. So I was lucky in the sense that I met Hill and then I met Najwa, and they were from different backgrounds. Somehow we made that click. How can acting and directing students contribute to my class, and then how my class, in a way, because the acting and directing students, like as I mentioned before, previously they were acting and by themselves and then directing each other, which did not make sense, which is not authentic, because as a director you should be working with the actors, not with other fellow directors. So my students gave that opportunity to the acting and directing students. Now they have real clients, real actors that they can work with. Of course, my students are no actors or actresses. They were future teachers, English teachers. So that is the best learning experience for the acting and directing students. And needless to say, the graphic designers were also involved very much. They were very relevant to our course because we needed someone to promote those events. And that is within their expertise, their learning outcomes. Okay. So the other thing that if you're planning something like an authentic learning assessment or alternative assessment, the reflection has to be there, the sharing. So the use of e-portfolio to document this learning and sharing has to be there. It doesn't matter whether you want to use Facebook or other forms of e-portfolio, or even as simple as Google, Google tools. I think Google has many tools that can be used as e-portfolios. And we, as the lecturers, we also need to provide the guidelines, the criteria, the timeline of what to do, how to do them, and when to complete them. So yes, of course, we want the students to be, to have the freedom to dictate their own learning, but then we also need to provide the guidelines and criteria. Okay, and then, of course, the authentic assessment, the rubric has to be in place, and research. So you're doing something which is huge. Why not collect data and write something about it? So we also included research component as one of the main component for this project. So our reflections, what did we learn? It was challenging for us, but it really engaged the learners. It really engaged the learners. So what we need to do in planning such projects, the project itself must be challenging and it should be engaging the learners. And therefore the tasks has to be challenging. Because the students have the knowledge and skills. We need to sort of like accept that students these days do have some knowledge and skills, so they are not empty cans or vessels that we need to pour everything out to them. So based on what they have, we push them, we give them some ideas and let them flourish. We still need to monitor, we still need to facilitate. That we did. Many groups did not have a real leader who was able to pull by their collars and by their necks and say, oh, this is how we're going to do it. So there were many times that we had to step in and monitor them and facilitate and give them motivation. That has to be done as well. But at some stage, after the initial challenges that we experienced, they were independent. They were doing things by themselves. Like as I mentioned earlier, by the time they were like 50% into the project, I think they already sensed they knew what they had to do and they were having fun. Though it was challenging and tiring, I think they liked the collaboration with the other groups of students. And we need to engage them and motivate them all the time. That is something that we had to do from time to time. So I will be motivating my students, and the other two will be motivating their respective students as well. But before the project started, we actually had a huge meeting. So we introduced all three of us, and we introduced the students to each other, and that's where and when we divided them into groups, making sure everybody had the same number of students, or all the 8 groups had the same number of students. We also made sure ethnically, because the 3 main groups were the Malay, Chinese, and Indian, so ethnically all the groups were balanced. In terms of gender, we also thought about that. In terms of ability to sing, to act, based on some small minor criteria, we also made sure that each group had, some students who was able to sing or act. We also supported them and provided guidelines. This is something that we have to do, even though they are doing the project. We have to support and provide guidelines where necessary. But at the same time, the freedom of expression, uh, you know, letting them make the critical decisions, especially the ones which are very much relevant to creativity. So whenever they ask question, Prof, how should we do this? I said, it's up to you. You decide. As long as it is right, it is relevant to this project, and you feel that would allow you to expand your creativity, your thinking, by all means, go ahead. So that freedom we gave to them, to all the three groups, to the designers, to my students, as well to the acting and directing students. So in terms of our own reflection, what I feel is that it could be a sustainable pedagogy. What do we have and what are our students' strengths? This is something that we have to think about. Because in order to carry such a huge, whereby it involves three big groups of students, we need to know what are their strengths and what they are able to do. A lot of meticulous planning and implementing the ideas. Before the project began, we actually met like 2 weeks before the semester started, and we met like almost every day, planning, discussing how to do this, how to do that, how to get them together. So a lot of planning. The other thing is we really had to make sure that whatever activities that we are planning, they had relevance and it was meaningful to the students' learning. Basically, their real experiences, especially the ones that they are going to go through and experience when they go out into the real world. This is something that I talked about just now, searching for commonalities between the three different groups. And we also had to solve a lot of problems leading to creative elements and thinking. So we need to make sure that we provide that problems to the students. So this is another way of learning for them, for the students to learn. So we need to sometimes we purposely create problems for them so that they have to solve such problems. So for example, one that we purposely included as part of the assessment is we told them that public would also contribute. That means they have to promote the videos to the public, and the number of likes would somehow contribute to the marks, to the final grade. So now we have created a problem. Now they have to resolve it. How? So it is up to their creativity. So one group, I think if I'm not mistaken, one group managed to get like 10,000 likes. So that is, I don't know what strategy that they use, because that was dealt by my colleague Najwa, because she's in the graphic and designing. She has a way of identifying that. So they had 10,000 likes for that particular performance. So some amount of marks went to that component. All right. So let's talk about assessment. So based on this experience of mine, of ours, together with my two colleagues, the AAA, alternative, authentic assessment. How do we put them together, right? Based on our experiences, we felt that there are 8 things that we need to take into account: the learning outcomes, assessment, tasks and assignments, reflection, the tools and technologies, skills and contents, collaboration, and engagement. And all these 8 elements must be relevant to the real world. It must be meaningful to the learners. It must be relevant to the learning outcomes, to their interests, to their needs, and it has to be challenging. So this model would really reflect a triple A kind of engagement, the authentic alternative assessment. So let me just give you an example of how it works. So let's say you can see the red line, yeah, the red line. So let's start with assessment, since this presentation is about assessment. So if you're thinking about the assessment, the other thing that you have to, if you're doing it online, and because our project, it had some the blended approach, the face-to-face as well as the online. Okay, so the assessment. So if you're planning an assessment, then you also need to think about the tools and technologies. Like in our case, the assessment of the public's contribution to the marks. So what are the tools and technologies that that we are going to use, so that this part, the tools and technologies, can contribute to the assessment, to the student's assessment, right? And then assessment and learning outcome. So this is, I mean, I think everybody in this room right now knows this, So your assessment has to reflect the learning outcomes. Whatever that we are assessing, it should contribute to the learning outcomes, especially the ones that are relevant to the course that they're taking. And then assessment and engagement. We need to make sure that the students are engaged in the assessment. Each one of them are engaged, and somehow the assessment will reflect their overall learning, right? So the engagement must be there. Collaboration. So I think I gave an example just now. So there are two types of assessment. The production, that means an overall assessment, A, that is relevant to all the three groups. That is number one. And the specific assessment, which only, for example, acting. So I can only grade my students because of the acting, for example, or the script writing. So that is very specific to my students. So how Hill students directed and guided the students, my students, to act, that would be the specific grades for her students. So the assessment in this nature, you also need to think about the collaboration, right? Because they collaborated as one team and came out with that production. So they have to have an overall assessment of that collaboration. So that is one. And then next, we have assessment and skill. And this is obvious. Obviously, when you assess in terms of language, for example, my students, I need to know whether this assessment would be able to capture the skills and the contents that I want my students to learn or improve on. Okay, so I need to use the appropriate assessment and reflection. So in this project, we use a lot of reflections as a form of self-assessment. So in this project, we use a lot of reflection as a form of self-assessment, assessing their own learning, their own progress, what they have gained, and so forth. And of course, the type of assignments, assessments, and tasks that we have. So we need to vary those assessments. So this is one example. And the blue line, as you can see, so from assessing the tasks and the assignments, now you have to think about collaboration. So it is an intertwined model, which is very, very complex. So from assessment to task, now you have to think about, okay, so fine, if I were to use task A, would task A then allow collaboration? Would task A facilitate collaboration? Would task A contribute or lead to the three different groups working together? That's the other question. And another blue line. So for example, collaboration. So if I were to do this sort of collaboration, what kind of tools and technologies do I need? Would it have any bearing on their learning outcomes? So if I were to do that, okay, would these tools and technology, would it now allow such an engagement, and so forth, and then what kind of reflection, and so forth. So this is a very complex model, which I find is very relevant to the project that we did, because the nature of the project, which was obviously very complex as well. We had a lot of aspects, and all these aspects, these eight elements in this model, actually facilitated the students' learning, because it really challenged them for a real world experience, something which is meaningful to them as a TESOL student, meaningful to them as an acting and directing students, meaningful to them as a graphic designer, and relevant to their interests and their abilities and so forth. So the conclusion, if you want to do something like this, I mean, like when I first started it, I started small, but the most important thing is you want to start small but make it relevant. The coursework. So such projects must be relevant to your coursework, and it must be also meaningful and challenging to both you as the lecturer and to the students, and ensure the achievement of the learning outcome. So this is key. Start small. It doesn't have to be big like mine, but like I said earlier, this project actually started small. It started with myself doing the drama, and then me roping in Hill so that she could help me direct the students, make them better actors, and then she using her students to collaborate with my students so that her students could also learn and my students can also learn. And then later we brought in Najwa, engaging more students in this collaboration. The most important thing, I think, apart from that, is reflective learning. The elements of research must be there, because we as lecturers, we must show scholarship of teaching and learning. And one of the key element of scholarship for teaching and learning is research and publication. And hopefully with these things in place, we will be able to expand and grow ourselves as a lecturer, as well as help our students to expand and grow. So based on this project, we did a publication. This is Scopus Q1, the qualitative report. And we also have submitted a couple of more articles. So this is the directing students. We also have written 2 more articles on the graphic designers and also my own students. But unfortunately, we sent to SSCI Q1 and it was rejected today. So how ironic it was. It is, sorry. So both articles were rejected, but they gave good comments, and they said it was interesting, and they have asked us to sort of like revise and resubmit. So that's the positive part. So with that, thank you. I'm very sure you have many questions to ask me. Please do. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Silakan.
Soalan kepada Prof. Assalamualaikum Prof. About the AD, the acting and directing, because that is actually for TESOL students, right? I think that we understood that it is actually preparing students for theatre performance.
No, okay.
That is actually coming from the article. Am I right?
Yeah. You mean the article?
Yeah,
You're talking about the article?
Correct. The article. So if Prof doesn't
the
mind,
article is about the directing students. So we actually collected data from the directing students, from the TESOL students, and as well as from the graphic designers. But the research were about different things.
All right.
So the one that we published is about the directing. So we have 2 more articles on the TESOL students as well as the graphic designers.
Okay. Because when I thought,
so what is it that you
the question, because if Prof doesn't mind to share the course learning outcome for that subject for the TESOL student.
Course learning outcome. For the TESOL student.
Correct.
Okay, basically Okay. I don't have it right now. Okay, but off my head.
Yeah,
Basically, the aim of this course, I'm
uh-huh.
teaching listening and speaking. PET 102, listening and speaking. Basically, we want to, and this is for the first years. Basically, we want to enhance their listening and speaking skills. I mean, of course, it's for they're supposed to become English language teachers, and that listening and speaking skill is fundamental to them for them to be a good teacher, right? So that's the basic aim. One of the learning outcomes is um, I can't tell you in the exact word, but I think one of the learning outcomes was for them to engage, practice, use the language in public settings. Okay, so when they are engaging with the directing students, when they were engaging with the graphic designers, and I mean, usually TESOL students or TESOL students will usually speak in English, but there were also times where they were also using Malay because of the graphic students and the directing students. Basically, they interacted using the Malay language, but the other parts whereby they have to write the reflections and obviously the drama, they have to use the English language. So basically, for the TESOL student, the learning outcome is to engage them. The learning outcome basically is to engage them, and they are able to speak in public.
Prof, so the
Yeah.
theatre is in Bahasa Melayu or is in English?
Oh, theatre is in English. If you go to the channels, the YouTube channels, they have to have different channels. Everything was in English.
So, and then the reflection also written in English. So basically that is the
Phone in
authentic
English.
assessment.
The acting and directing student, I mean, we didn't force them to write in English because obviously the language, the mode of instruction was in Malay. But some of them did write in good English. Some of them campur-campur, English and Malay. Some of them wrote totally in Malay. But I think most of them, my students, obviously, they had to write in English. But most of the students, the acting and directing, as well as the graphic designers, even though they were not good in English, they still attempted to write in English. So indirectly, somehow it sort of like forced them or motivated them. I don't know which one is which. Somehow it motivated them or forced them to write in English as well. I think there was another question.
Assalamualaikum. Very good evening, Prof. My question is there any difference or adjustment that need to be made for different sizes of groups? Like let's say one semester we have like a group of 30 students and the other semester maybe around 100 something. So what's your suggestion or experience or opinion about this?
You go with the number of students yang sedia ada. For example, currently, that's what I had to do. The numbers are not the same every year. Sama juga dengan Hill, dengan Najwa, my colleagues too. The numbers were always not the same. So when we put them together, kita nak tengok balance tu, and then we want to make sure that number one, all the groups had the same number of students. All right. Number two, contohnya kan, you need more actors than directors, right? You need more actors than directors. Tak boleh lah more directors than actors. Then orang kata apa, lebih banyak, too many chefs will spoil the soup. So dan kebetulan pula memang acting and directing, the number of students tu memang tak banyak, tak ramai. So that made things easier for us. So what we did was, we made sure there's like 3 or 4 directors in one group, but a good number of actors. The graphic designers, no problem, because they had a lot of things to do. They had to prepare the video, they have to edit, they have to do a lot of stuff. So we included as many graphic designers as possible for all the groups. So kita kena balance out lah the number of students and the roles that they are playing. You know, like actors, obviously we need more actors than directors. A good example would be that. So you need to know which is the priority. But walaupun sedikit, even though the directors are small numbered, but they had one of the most important role because as a director, rupa-rupanya, I learned it in this course, in this collaboration. Rupa-rupanya, they have to oversee semua. Dia macam VC of a university. So they have to look at the actors, they have to look at the script, they have to look at the props created by the graphic designers. Basically, they actually lead the entire production. So how they act, what kind of shirts yang pakai, and what kind of iklan yang the graphic designers had to do. So it all kena sort of like synchronize well with the theme and the topic, and the title of their drama, the musical drama. So they had to be thinkers lah, basically.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Okay, Hamida, Dr. Hamida, hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much.
I also did a similar collaboration, tapi that was a long time ago, but that was inter-university. And we used undergraduate students. That was a collaboration between me, USM, UKM, and UTM. So I collaborated with my PhD supervisor, Prof. Amin, as well as another lecturer from UTM, Dr. Wan Farah from UTM. So they were teaching, all of us, obviously, we were teaching different courses, you know. I can't remember that because that project was so long ago. But we had to think the commonalities yang tadi I sebut tu, I talked about the commonalities. So we had to find what is common among my students, the UKM students as well the UTM students. So we created a platform. So we asked them to do something like an online newsletter. So this online newsletter, whereby all three groups they are able to contribute together meaningfully. I think I had a question that I saw a question. How do I make sure the contents are original? Okay, all right. Thank you for the question. That is something which was beyond me because the content would obviously be acting and directing, kan? So I depended a lot on my colleague Hill though, because she is very well versed what is authentic dan sebagainya. But the thing is, it is so easy to make sure it is authentic because this is where the e-portfolio comes in. So they cannot simply come out. Tiba-tiba je tutup, there is already a presentation, you know, because every week we ask them, all the three different groups to reflect and capture what they have done, what were their progress, what did they do this week, what are the challenges, what are the problems. So these are the reflections that they had to do weekly, on a weekly basis. So at least once a week, they must, but that e-portfolio is also taken into the assessment. That means ada markah untuk e-portfolio. So, for example, katalah they had training, because that video yang I couldn't show just now though, dalam video tu ada one session that group did the behind the scenes, whereby that's why they had to show us the training, what they did, the progress of the script writing and so forth. So the behind of the scenes is an idea from Najwa, because she's from the graphic designers, and she said we need to have that behind the scenes because that is sometimes very valuable in assessing their progress. So because in education kita tak ada behind the scenes, is always in front of the scenes, in front of the classroom. So all the groups had to do behind the scenes. Maksud dia, what happened, what was the training like, and so forth. So this weekly reflection actually allowed us to monitor their progress, tengok macam mana perkembangan mereka, what did they do. So in that training, for example, the TESOL students will be reflecting, the acting and directing students will be reflecting, the graphic designers will be reflecting. So by looking at these three reflections, and of course they must upload pictures and videos and things like that as evidence of their learning. So that is one very simple way of ensuring that whatever that they are producing is original, authentic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to UPSI for inviting.
Yes, Prof. Thank you to you too, because
for inviting me.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Prof, for the
Alright.
wonderful session we have just now. InsyaAllah kita akan bertemu lagi di ruangan lain.
InsyaAllah.
Terima kasih juga pada semua. Link attendance kita telah letakkan di